And yet we can be a keynote at a corporate conference and say, oh, I'm now going to hand over to John, who's going to give you a 1 hour voice thing. Okay, put your hand on your belly, breathe deeply. It's all about the breath, and it's all about the muscles of your voice. Let me tell you a story about an actor. Let me tell you a story about a singer. Let me mention voice again. Let me mention breath one more time, and let me send you an invoice.
Yeah. You've seen my work.
You're listening to the Occupational Philosophers with Simon Banks and John Rice.
Hello and welcome to the Occupational Philosophers, the not-so-serious business podcast that mashes up the world of curiosity, creativity, and a very healthy dash of philosophy thrown in. Each and every week, I'm joined by my co-host and co-producer, John Rice. John, good morning to you. And what's caught your curious eye this week?
Hey, good morning, Simon. Thank you. What's caught my eye is slightly sort of something in the news, which is the jury selection for Donald Trump's trial, which is just coming up. And I was purely, without getting political, just laughing at the fact that they have spent days trying to find someone, a set of impartial jurors that perhaps could genuinely sort of pass judgment and weigh up the evidence for Donald Trump. And I just wondered if there was absolutely anybody who didn't know of him well enough to be able to have some bias one way or the other. I just imagine someone saying, and do you know the defendant? They go, yeah, is that the guy who makes steaks? Or he owns a golf course, doesn't he? I just thought that was really funny that they were going through this process as if they were going to stumble across somebody who'd been sat in a cave for the last 8 years. They go, never heard of him. I'll give him a fair trial. So that caught my eye.
Who's that then?
Who's that? Who's that guy?
On that, do you think I was thinking about this today.
Yeah.
Do you think you could be impartial?
Well, funny enough, I did jury service 2 months ago. First time ever. Obviously, I can't tell you anything about it really, but it was a very interesting scenario. But of course, I was impartial in that instance for sure. But would I be impartial with Donald Trump? I don't think that's for this podcast. I'll tell you later over a beer, I think.
But you don't think you could sit there and impartially listen to the facts?
Well, yeah, I suppose you could. The thing is that you would always be listening to evidence and trying to make it maybe potentially fit your narrative. Yeah. That you might have. Yeah, so it is a tremendously difficult thing, but I did chuckle to myself that somebody might know this person as a reality TV star rather than an ex-president.
Yeah.
So, a simple observation, but it made me laugh anyway.
No, it's a good one.
What about you, Simon? What's caught your eye?
Well, John, what's caught my eye is a court case involving the Ladies' Lounge, or an exhibition, I should say, an exhibition space called the Ladies' Lounge at the Mona Gallery in Hobart, which is a very, very well-known gallery internationally. And the exhibition was put on as an exclusive sort of ladies' lounge in the gallery with all, let's say, quite posh and served by butlers when you go in with champagne, exclusively for ladies, and some of the best artworks, or the best artworks in the museum in there. And it was done, I guess, to show the irony, or not the irony, show a parody of having, up until 1965 in Australia, all these men-only places, like ladies weren't allowed in pubs until 1965. So it's done to reflect the experience of what women went through. And you still have a lot of clubs, even golf clubs, where ladies can't join. Now, so this has been going very successfully since 2020, so three and a half years. And recently, a visitor from New South Wales, a man, went down and was annoyed, I guess, that he couldn't go in. So he challenged this in the state's anti-discrimination laws in Tasmania, saying, well, I was discriminated against because I'm a man, and it wasn't clearly stated when I went into the gallery that I couldn't go into this museum. And the gallery was arguing, well, that is the artwork. The discrimination is the artwork. And went to the Anti-Discrimination Board in Tasmania and lost. So my reflection is the arts bring about a powerful conversation, and just almost the irony of possibly having spaces which are still men exclusive. But what I liked is the artist and the curator that space. She said, yeah, the guy's really interesting. He's brought it around. He said he's almost concerned with the legalities and challenging from that. And she said, well, the court case is conversation of the artwork continuing. And what I did like, though, her and about 30 other ladies turned up to the court case all marching in like Robert Palmer style. Remember those videos when all the women were in like suits and different things? They all went in like that. So, and he also said, he said, I like your argument. That thing annoyed me. He said, that's almost contempt of court. But anyway, I just like the power of the arts to bring around a story, bring ideas to the forefront. And I was also thought she was very gracious. I'm not sure how she feels now that they've lost the court case, but very gracious in, well, the court case is the artwork and, challenging us as part of the story. So, yeah.
Very clever, very clever. What they should do now, they should make him an honorary member. Just say, you can't come in now. And you go, well, I don't want to. You go, no, but you can come in. But I don't want to. Anyway, I like that. I like that a lot. Simon, this is a guest episode, which is always very exciting for us. Who is the curious cat we have with us this week?
Well, John, as always, we're in for a treat. Our next guest is a multi-hyphenate creative polymath who's as comfortable on stage as he is in infrastructure projects and leadership, interpersonal communication skills, and organisational culture. Now, our guest is an Australian actor, a graduate of NIDA, which is the National Institute of Dramatic Arts in Sydney, and has appeared in over 20 TV shows and films, including everything from A Country Practice through to the Inbetweeners movie, #2, which John and I are both big fans of. He is widely adored for his portrayal of Steve Kerrigan in the 1997 film The Castle, and as Cardago, I think I'm saying this right, I may have it wrong, in the science fiction television series Farscape, which he was nominated for a Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actor in a television series. He holds a Masters of Fine Arts specialising in actor training and has taught at NIDA, as well as teaching and directing at various other institutions, including the Queensland University of Technology. But John, that's not all. As a multi-hyphenate, he now has over 15 years' experience in training and coaching as the owner of a consulting firm that links human potential to outstanding business results. He has a doctorate in creative industries, organisational storytelling and knowledge management, which I can't wait to dive into, which enables him to create engaging, lively and dynamic learning spaces where adults are challenged and inspired. Our guest has a global track record of success in assisting partners to win work in the billions of dollars, I should say, through his bid coaching services. And he is also coached and facilitated top executives, leaders, and teams in various industries and sectors, helping them to improve their communication, influence, and leadership skills. And unsurprisingly, our guest leverages his background in the arts to bring creativity, innovation, and pragmatism, I like that word, to his work. Welcome, Dr. Anthony Simcoe.
Thank you so much. That is quite an awe-inspiring introduction there. I think you've managed to capture things that I've long forgotten about my past. So I'm having flashbacks.
Did you know that?
Power of the internet.
Did you know you're a multi-hyphenate, Anthony?
I'm certain going to the front of the business card, or straight to the pool room, as they say. That's going to be on my introduction from now on. He says, Googling multi-hyphenate.
So, diving straight into this, what's caught your curious eye this week?
Well, what's caught my eye, and it's both interested me and terrified me, is that there's a television mogul in the United States, very successful, one of the most successful television and film producers in America. His name's Tyler Perry. And he was about to spend $800 million US expanding his studios in Atlanta. As you know, he's got his forward pipeline of films that he needs to make. He thought, okay, I've got to get these studios built so I can accommodate that. He took one look at Sora AI. So Sora AI is the Chat GPT artificial intelligence video and filmmaking tool. Took one look at that and cancelled $800 million worth of build of studios.
Oh my God.
He looked at that and said, we don't need this anymore. And straight away, you think of the impact on say, the construction side, the people designing the studios, the people building the studios, the economy around the studios, all that sort of infrastructure lens of those studios not being built. And then you've got the creative industries lens, where he's saying the editors, the scenery makers, the set makers, the prop makers, and dare we say the actors, we're coming to a point where they might not be replaced completely, but they'll certainly be augmented by this type of technology. So we've all seen this coming, and we've all got different views. It's certainly a lot of conversation that I'm having with people in different sectors, whether they're creative industries or not. But that just seemed to me to be the most real, present, major economic impact that someone of that level, with that level of experience, with that level of resource, can just, in a dime, just say, no, stop. I can't see value for money in this investment moving forward. So that caught my eye and has left me with lots of questions that we're all grappling with as we try and catch up with this new world that we live in. So that's what's caught my eye this week.
It was the recent Hollywood actor, creator, writer strike, if I've got that right. Was that not very much down to this issue around studios bringing in AI to take the role of creatives?
Yes, that's my understanding, that part of the negotiation was protection of jobs, validation of jobs when AI starts to integrate with those processes. And then they're one of, I think, or that industry is one of the first industries through that SAG negotiations trying to grapple with the future of work, not just in the creative industries, but in other industries. You can imagine how it's going to be disrupting a whole lot of things. So yes, that was very much a part of that conversation. And also they're very worried about, well, the training data. What data did you use to be able to get to this point? And how are we being, what's the recompense for us to be able to recognize for all that work that we've done, that you've been able to leverage seemingly for free to then go and create this tool that you're now monetizing? Well beyond my pay grade to go into the nuances of those arguments, but it's certainly something that I'm really interested in, because I think in all areas of society, we've got this enormous wave coming towards us that we have to grapple with and either fight against, embrace, whatever our attitude is. I'm part of the zeitgeist. It's probably your least interesting observation. Oh, he's talking about AI.
No, it's great. Yeah.
No, funny enough, one of the things that caught my curious eye was an AI one, but I'd spotted something about it a few weeks back and I thought, no, I'll leave that one. But it does seem to, I don't know if you think, Anthony, it seems to have come creeping along, AI, and then all at once. It's just happened. And disaster happens slowly at first, and then it happens all at once. And it feels like there's a bit of a cliff edge there, as you've described it there.
For sure. I mean, we'll probably talk about it a little bit later on, but part of my doctorate was looking at artificial intelligence and its ability to be able to provide feedback for storytellers. And primarily we were looking at technologies in that study like natural language processing, natural language generation, natural language understanding, and all of the evidence to that point. I'm not a data scientist, but all the evidence to that point saw this level of sophistication and response and movement towards AGI as being a long way, artificial general intelligence, where we get this perception that the AI has human-like capabilities. It seemed years away. Every prediction that I made based on the literature in my thesis, which is only a couple of years old, was wrong. So the fact that these large language models have been released into the world with such efficacy is absolute. It does feel like we've just gone off a cliff, because it seemed like we were on this manageable trajectory of how fast this technology would be able to be incorporated into society. And I think most of us, myself included, have been blindsided by, wow, it can do this much to this level, and this is the future. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. I'm still processing it.
I've got a retort to the other side. I was reading, you probably get this, Anthony, where you live in Australia, John. I'm not sure what happens, like the local real estate or always popping things in your letterbox. Hey, we just sold something around the corner for 1.8 million or whatever. I read the one yesterday, and I'm reading through the the words describing what it was in. It says, "You'll sit outside in the falling light on your balcony like the sumptuous gardens of Babylon, with with butterflies wafting around your hair. How will you know the sumptuous delights?" And she looked at the children frolicking in the pool, and I thought, I literally read it, and I thought, hey, ChatGPT,
Yeah.
baby, ChatGPT. And I just having done played used ChatGPT, you just realize, first draft, man, you got to give it a few more prompts here.
Lazy intern at Ray and White, give him 20 to-dos, and he thinks he's ticked that one off in 5 minutes, so he could get on to the next thing. We're away. It's just a disaster, a bomb going off in everyone's letterbox around the neighbourhood. Absolutely appalling.
Now, look, we're going to jump into what we call a dinner party round. And John, do you want to introduce this to Anthony?
Yeah, we just wanted to kick off with some nice questions to get to know a bit more about you, Anthony. And rather than the hello, what do you do for a living, which we will get to, we thought we'd start with something a bit more sort of interesting. So as you sit down, grab that glass of wine, because it's that time of the day for you over there. What's giving you joy at the moment?
I have just rediscovered or discovered a channel on my set-top box that plays 80s MTV rock clips back to back. And I am in 12-year-old heaven, just seeing these old Duran Duran clips and Prince clips and Madonna clips, and just like reliving my childhood. So any break I get now, I go down to the lounge room, and instead of putting on the radio or doing something perhaps a little bit more productive, my downtime is watching these clips. And that really makes me think about the things you let go of and the things you love. Because if you had asked me through my 20s, even when I was at NIDA and even when I was acting and making film, I said, Anth, what do you want to do? I say, well, look, I'm doing this and I'm loving it. But the thing I really want to do is I want to direct rock clips. I want to direct video clips. that just looks like the coolest job. And the band won't be named, but I did get after a little bit of success in film, I did get an entree into that world, and I was invited in to talk to the record company and the managers of a quite large, well-known Australian band, and they didn't like my idea at all because I didn't have the band in it at all. The entire storyboard didn't have one shot of the of the band. I thought it was a very cool concept, but I obviously didn't put the product front and center up there. So getting enormous joy. And across that period, you're just seeing things from like the late 70s and really just super daggy, cheap as chips videos into the real MTV era, with video clips starting to get mega budgets and really, really creative directors and artists starting to push that as a legitimate art form in its own right. And it's just a lovely time to be watching video clips through that 80s, just to watch that transition. So I am buzzing watching that, John and Simon. That's what's giving me enormous amounts of joy.
I must say, though, this could be a backlash or a pushback, Anthony, on Sora AI, if you consider something like Money for Nothing by Dire Straits, which is one of the first ones that I always remember seeing, thinking, wow, this looks amazing, as these block figures, sort of Minecraft style, make their way around the screen. Go, it's amazing.
Yeah,
a lot of big film directors cut their teeth on those kind of music videos, didn't they? There was such a appetite for it as MTV opened this up, that a lot of early directors, I think, that was where they sort of first found their trade, as it were, and they went on to bigger things. I think, I don't know names of who, but I do remember that was a massive thing.
For sure, it works both ways. Like I remember one of the, he isn't a household name, and he's sadly passed away now, but one of the best directors and producers I ever worked in Australia was an incredibly talented guy called Andrew Prowse. And if you look across Australian television for the last, say, he's passed away a few years ago now, but you say look into the 2000s, early 2000s, he was across a lot. And he started out as a video editor, a rock clip video editor, and then transitioned into directing clips, and then went into television. Just amazing producer. And then you see people go the other way, whether it be You have people like Chris Cunningham, or you get Spike Jonze, wonderful films like Her and things like that started out, Beastie Boys clips and all those type of things moving into features. So absolutely wonderful pathway. A pathway I never got to tread.
Now, do you have a hobby you lose yourself in right now?
I have absolutely always lose myself when I'm writing songs. So I'm a terrible songwriter. I'm not a great musician. It's not about, I've been playing guitar since I was 16, and I'm not one of those people that can rock up to a party and, roll out 30 different favorite covers and things. But I've written hundreds of songs over my lifetime, all terrible. I think about Simon and Garfunkel, the person, singing songs that voices never share. So I'm that guy. And if I've got a guitar in my hand and writing a song, then time doesn't exist. I just find myself in flow. I think being an Aussie bloke who perhaps from my history wasn't great at sharing my feelings and my experiences, that my songs over that time are my diary. My experiences of life can be found from 16 right up to the grand old age I am now, through the types of songs I write and the things that I concentrate on. But they're not for public consumption. They're not that great, but boy, they bring me a lot of joy and they get me lost in the world.
I was just thinking there, Anthony, that if you could find someone called Garfunkel, then you could go out as Simcoe and Garfunkel. It could be a nice opportunity for you. Maybe there's still a chance.
I just need the songwriting, singing, guitar playing chops, and then we're sorted. We're fine. Just missing those small ingredients to be able to make that a success.
and Mr. Garfunkel, wherever you are. If you're listening, Mr. Garfunkel, exactly right. Anthony needs a songwriting partner.
Or even a Garfish, Garfield, starting with Gar. We'll take
Simcoe and Garfield.
Anyone with crazy hair, I'll take it. His hair was absolutely phenomenal. I'll take just some crazy hair guy off the street, and then we'll be fine.
Another question, which is, who or what inspires you right now?
Oh, that is a really, really great question. I think who inspires me continually is a whole lot of people, whether it's my family, my colleagues. But I have one person I just keep returning to. She's a great connector. Her name's Mary Jane Bellotti, and I met her in construction the first time I ever came across her. And her ability to be able to connect people, ideas, motivate, work ethic. There's just something about being in her presence that always makes me feel I'm 10 foot taller, lots of neurons smarter. Something about being around a great leader and watching her work with her people is just sensational. And she's given me many gifts over the years, but she's actually the person, it wasn't my insight, it was actually her insight that connected my creative industries background with my current work, which is in the bid infrastructure space. I didn't see that connection. She was the one that saw that connection. Said, hey, look, these skills are transferable in this environment, in this way. Why don't we work together to see whether there's some value that we can create in bringing those things together? So it's been the case for a long time, but I'm going to put out there my great mate and friend, and actually she was one of my industry supervisors for my doctorate, the wonderful Mary Jane Bellotti.
All right, Mary Jane, gold star.
Gold star for MJ.
If you're listening, which I know you will be as well. So now, really enjoying the dinner party. The wine's good. We've got some nice things from South Australia tonight. And some cold air wine from Tasmania as well. So we'll just pour a few more. But what are you curious about right now, or what big question are you wrestling with?
Look, the question that I think underpins just a lot of what I think about every single day, it's related to my work, but it's certainly not a key topic about what I go to market with or discuss with my clients. It's just something that I'm really, really interested in. And that is, what can you accomplish at the limit of your talent? And that's something that always interests me. Let me explain it like this, John. You might be surprised to hear this coming from an Australian, because it's not that common from an Australian, but I am a mad, bad, like a 12-year-old boy, insane, crazy Crystal Palace fan. I am Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace.
Don't hear that from anyone.
Palace.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of reasons why an Australian football lover might like Crystal Palace. There's a strong pipeline of Australian players over the years that have played for Crystal Palace. When I started to get really interested in the EPL, Yadanak, who was the Australian Socceroos captain, was also the captain of Crystal Palace. What absolutely why I think I feel at home with Crystal Palace, and this goes to your question, is that I believe, talented as they are, that no one would describe a Crystal Palace player as the best footballer on the planet. The only time I've been to Selhurst Park, their home ground, we were playing Liverpool, and an interesting statistic was that every single individual player playing for Liverpool at that time was, in dollar value, worth more than our entire squad. Just one individual dollar value could be sold more for the entire Crystal Palace squad. We won that day, and we won on the weekend as well. So happy days. Doesn't happen that often. But it gets me thinking, well, what can you do when you're not the best at something? And how can you apply yourself to get the most out of your context? I cannot think of one thing in my life where I could look you in the eye and say, I'm the best at that. I wasn't the best actor. I'm not going to look you in the eye and say I'm the best facilitator. I'm not going to look you in the eye and say I'm the best bid coach. I'm not the best at anything. And does that mean I should give up, fall down and die and not care? Does that mean I should believe in the statements like you create your own luck? Well, I think even when you create your own luck and you're out there kicking a football 1,000 times a day when everyone else is kicking it 500 times a day, you still might not be genetically fast enough, or you might just not have the talent to get there. I could draw a tree 1,000 times a year, and yet I'm never going to have the artistic skill, even with practice, that someone like Simon has. So that's just something that really, really interests me. It's something that challenged me when I was teaching artists, particularly when I lectured and directed at NIDA for 12 years. So you're responsible for these amazingly talented people launching their career, doing your absolute best to give them a platform to go and successfully work in the creative industries. And sometimes you'd think, you know what, this person's at the limit of their talent. What does that mean for their career?
It is a fascinating question, because I'm sure Simon might be having a similar question for him, because that's often, as Simon's often said, when you say, are you creative? And immediately that individual compares themselves to some image of creativity, which is the goat of creativity, the Picasso, the Leonardo. And you go, no, that's not the comparison. Yeah, what's your talent? And how do we sort of get that out? So I do think it's a really interesting question to wrestle with. The other one is, do you know why Crystal Palace and Brighton have such a sort of rivalry? Because I'm a Brighton fan. And I've never...
Oh, no!
So, for the uninitiated, Simon, obviously, Brighton and Crystal Palace. So Brighton, South Coast, which is where I'm living. I'm down here on the South Coast. Crystal Palace, the outskirts of London. For some reason, that's the fierce rivalry. Usually it's a derby rivalry, isn't it, Anthony? You'd have,
yes, correct.
You know, the Manchester City, Man United, the City teams coming together and fighting furiously. For some reason, it's us and Crystal Palace. And I know it goes back to something like 1984, because somebody threw a can of beans at someone on the pitch or something. I don't know. It's something.
Yes, I looked it up as well, because it seems so incongruous. The fact geographically, and it just seems like the craziest rivalry. But there it is. That tribal nature brings some spice to those games.
It does,
which is always interesting. So that's what I'm continue to be curious about. How can I motivate myself, others? How can I get better at what I do every single day, knowing that best of my efforts are still going to leave me at a limit, and that's okay.
Now, two observations here. One's an observation, one's going to be a question. John, that's the first time I've ever heard you talk about sport ever. I think it's the first time it's ever even mentioned on the show, and I'm not knocking that. So I've learned something about you now. But just to wrap up our dinner party, Anthony, how would you describe what you do, and or maybe another way to frame it? If you put yourself in the middle of 3 or 4 things, what are your intersections, or what are those crossovers?
Well, I'm a bid coach, and a facilitator in interpersonal skills and leadership. So I used to think that the intersections were between my creative industries background, education skills, your ability to be able to create interesting learning design for the audience that you're working with, your understanding of leadership in practice, leadership theory, and communication skills. Where I've arrived is all of those things for me coalesce around this idea of how do you manage knowledge? How do I create knowledge? And then how do I transfer that knowledge from one person to another? So at a really broad level, I'd say whether I'm working in leadership, as I do, and whether I'm helping large infrastructure projects or teams trying to win work, which is what an infrastructure bid coach does. If I'm working with individuals on their communication skills or presentation skills, it does all boil down to we have to create some knowledge and we have to transfer that knowledge to another person. So that's what I'm in the game of, helping people create and transfer knowledge. And I'm using my creative industries background and my education and research and leadership skills and communication research to be able to facilitate that. And really broad brushstrokes, I run workshops.
And in summary.
Yeah. And I'm the guy that rocks up to the front of the room and tries to make it interesting and tries to give you something really pragmatic to take away.
That's it. You're the guy.
We're not at uni. We don't need a lecture. Yeah.
There's a flip chart in the room. Quick, let me draw something.
Yeah. I've got my Simon Begg skills here. I've learned how to do my flip charting. I'm going to put them up at the best of my ability.
So, Anthony, the Occupational Philosophers, it was born of this idea for us to explore the interplay around curiosity and creativity and imagination. And it was thinking about how philosophers obviously brought that sense of curiosity and creativity into the way they thought about things. So we'd like to talk some more about the work that you do. And I wanted to start off around the doctorate you have in creative industries. And that has organisational storytelling, knowledge management, which you described just a moment ago about that thing about managing knowledge and knowledge transfer. But the title doesn't really dive deep enough, I think, into what that's about. Can you tell us what it is about and what was the journey to that doctorate?
It was a really personal journey because I felt, in one sense, when I moved into my corporate life by choice, I felt like I actually had to make excuses for my creative background. And in one sense would disown it or downplay it. And that's because I hadn't really grappled or reconciled with something that concerned me with people from creative industries coming into corporate life, which is being really rigorous around what transfers. What is it from a creative industries practice that legitimately transfers into other contexts? And my observation, right or wrong, was that artists and creatives actually overplayed the relevance that their skills or how their skills could transfer into another environment. I didn't feel they were pragmatic enough. I felt they were performative, that they could come into a room, charm it, tell a story, bring the energy, bring the sizzle, bring the drama. And people are left with a great impression and a great performance, but weren't left with a whole lot of pragmatic skills. Now, there's a whole lot of nuance to what I'm about to say now. The perfect example is like teaching voice in corporate land. So when we teach voice at a drama school, somewhere like NIDA, we get those students and they're doing voice for 1 to 3 hours a day, nearly every day of the week, every month, every year of a 3-year degree, typically in a conservatory setting. And at the end of that 3 years, not all of them have the physical dexterity, skill, muscular control of breathing and other muscles to be able to perform at an optimal level. And yet we can be a keynote at a corporate conference and say, oh, I'm now going to hand over to John, who's going to give you a 1 hour voice thing. Okay, put your hand on your belly, breathe deeply. It's all about the breath and it's all about the muscles of your voice. Let me tell you a story about an actor. Let me tell you a story about a singer. Let me mention voice again. Let me mention breath one more time and let me send you an invoice.
Yeah. You've seen my work.
And mine. So this is actually why I did the doctor. I'm thinking like, are we being honest about what transfers? Or are we saying to the people at night, oh, you're kidding yourself. You don't need 3 years and 1 hour, 1 to 3 hours a day, week after week, month after month to get that. And then the argument is about, well, okay, how much do you need for performance? How much do you need for a corporate presentation? The skill set isn't the same, but it's limited. These are all the types of things that I was exploring. And I'm just using voice as an example there. So I wanted to use the doctorate to think about, okay, how can I make things really practical and pragmatic for people? I came back to this idea of transferring knowledge. I wanted the doctorate to help me get really pragmatic about the types of advice I gave in my practice as a facilitator. Landed on this idea of knowledge management. And what the research shows around knowledge management is that we can explain knowledge, which usually coordination knowledge or contextual knowledge. So coordination is, this is how we integrate, this is how we do things together. Contextual knowledge, this is what it's like in our organization or with our clients, things like that. And to transfer that contextual and coordination knowledge, we then break it down into explicit and tacit knowledge. So explicit are the things that we can write down, that we can put in manuals, that we can put in systems, almost like algorithmic. And the tacit information we learn through internalization and socialization. So we learn it through doing, we learn it by getting our hands on the wheel, and we learn it by sharing our experiences through storytelling. And that's where it absolutely came home for me. And that when people report back on the transfer of knowledge on a particular issue, most people will self-report back to you that the real value came out of the internalization and the socialization. In other words, getting their hands on the wheel, hearing the stories of other people. So it really, really got me interested in how we create stories, how we tell stories in the workplace, and how those stories differentiate themselves from storytelling for entertainment. Now, here I can get back on my hobby horse about the differences between storytelling for entertainment and storytelling for knowledge management, because I think people in the workplace are really scared of telling stories, even though they do it naturally all the time. I mean, telling prepared stories, telling strategic stories. And that's because the stories that are held up in front of them as being exceptional are very performative. They're usually extroverts. They're usually professional keynote speakers. They're usually incredibly dramatic. If you go to lots of keynotes where storytelling is a key, you go to safety conferences and you'll hear wonderful stories about fatalities, about injuries, about this, that, and the other. And you get someone in the workplace who's managing the document control for a bid, and they're going, well, my job's important and I like it, but it's document control. No one's dying because of this and it hasn't been life changed because of that. Storytelling's not for me. And I wanted to say, actually, you know what? You've been sold a pup there. You do not need to have these mega performative, dramatic stories for you to actually need and require storytelling, because there's something in your document control there that's complex, that's important, that only you understand because of your experience with it. And your team members on the other side of the office need to understand that. And they're not going to get that from the manual. They're not going to get that from the e-learning training. They're not going to get that from anything else apart from that internalization, getting your hands on the wheel, that socialization, listening to stories about how it's done. So you telling stories about what you understand, what you've experienced, what your lessons are, where you think we're going in the future, how you want this team or this organization to be, are incredibly important. And that's a hard road for people to get across, because they continually come back to, my favorite movie's this, my favorite actor's that, my best keynote I ever went to was this. This is the most dramatic thing I remember. And I go, you know what? Just tell us about how you implemented this new software last time and all the problems that came across, because that's going to be really important in the success of this organization, and we need to hear it.
But and with that, Anthony, it comes back a little in a way to that question you were wrestling with, wasn't it? What can you accomplish at the limit of your talent? That people immediately go to the TED talker, or they go to the storytellers that they go, the Richard Burtons and the Laurence Oliviers are the great actors who could imbue a story with drama and pathos and everything else. They go, I couldn't do that. But you go, but that's not the only flavour of it. So it's that fear that they don't step into it as either, and as you say, a misperception of actually what storytelling is about and what it could be. It's not just about telling movie stories and fantasies and everything else. But fascinating. So
right.
And the last question I had on this before I let Simon jump back in is, with the doctorate, again, reminding myself of this, you choose the subject, don't you? As a doctorate, you go, I'm going to research this. And somebody says, yep, that's great, and off you go. You craft the doctorate around the topic of interest, and then you go do the research, whether that's desk research or talking to people, primary and secondary research. Is that correct? You just go out and gather that together and create an analysis and a thesis off the back of that?
Absolutely. It's almost like you're pitching an idea initially that you know will change or has the possibility to change. So when you're engaging with the university to hopefully get a place, and it's something that the faculty is interested in, you're saying, I've got this background, I've got this genesis of a research question. It's going to be exploring this gap in the current research. They take that on board. And then typically what happens in the first year of your doctorate, and you do a little bit more reading, you do your literature review, you do some exploration of the field as it stands.
Yeah.
And then if you're open to change and if you're open to new knowledge, new things come up. And sometimes that's just in terms of relationships. So my doctorate had an industry partner who I actually can't name because of NDAs, but the industry partner, I thought I was just going to be doing storytelling in practice. How do you transfer creative industries knowledge to people outside the creative industries to apply storytelling to manage knowledge? And my partner said, well, you know what? We're on a massive knowledge management project at the moment with our artificial intelligence division. Do you think there's any way you can help our AI team start to synthesize the storytelling work that you're doing in the classroom with the way that we're capturing this knowledge in our new AI systems? So then a large chunk of my doctorate ended up becoming, what is the widget between facilitators teaching in a classroom and technology specialists building AI? How do you start to talk about storytelling competencies and skills so that then they can start to build their technology while you're building your learning design and experiences? And that was something that was absolutely not on my radar before I started this. I hadn't done any data science, any undergraduate work. So a big chunk of my doctoral time was actually just catching up on natural language processing primarily. And it was the hardest part of my journey and probably one of the most rewarding, just to dive into that whole new world of learning.
Now, I'm going to jump in sort of on the side of this. Firstly, kudos for doing your doctorate. So, like, man, what a effort, I'm going to say. I don't know, effort's not the right way to say it, but hey, I'm going to say, what did you say before? What can you accomplish at the limit of your talent? Man, I reckon that everyone I've spoken to about a doctorate just says, oh, almost killed me. So, firstly, kudos for that. But my question was, what makes an interesting story then? Even though you said stories come in, all shapes and sizes, there to be the keynote-y, dramatic TED talk type one. Are there some elements of a good story that anyone can pick up on, or following that, are we better at telling stories than we imagine? Because we've been doing it since the beginning of time, sharing meaning and knowledge, and Australia, 65,000 years of storytelling. So if you can remember what I started with, what makes a good story, and are we better at it than we give ourselves credit for? Maybe.
I think what makes a great story is the ability to help your audience walk in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
And the people who mistake anecdote for story, usually they tell a sequence of events in a setting that has some problems that ends up with a resolution, but we haven't actually walked in the shoes of someone. So when you look at definitions of story from various sources, there's lots to choose from. But my favorite actually is from Lisa Cronus. She is someone who helps. She's like a script doctor, and she helps people working in creative industries write film scripts and television scripts. And her definition, I think, helps people lean into what makes a great story. And her definition is a story is how what happens affects someone who is trying to achieve what turns out to be a difficult goal and how he or she changes as a result. I love that. A story is how what happens affects someone who's trying to achieve what turns out to be a difficult goal and how he or she changes as a result. Because that puts straight onto the storyteller thinking about the story creation. Oh, okay, it has to be about someone and they have to be trying to do something and it has to be a little bit hard, otherwise it's boring. And when they get to the end, she's changed or the world has changed. And I think that goes to the heart of when I'm working with experienced storytellers or novice storytellers, it's always about, can you walk me in the shoes of that person? And when you get to the resolution in a business context, as opposed to storytelling for entertainment, are you crystal clear to the audience about why you're telling them? See, in the arts or in creative industries, the thematic complexity of great storytelling leads you to have wonderful dinner party conversations about what the art means. So you can embrace a piece of art and we'll be having a glass of wine and Simon will say, well, I took this out of it. And someone else say, well, that's interesting that you took that because I thought it was really about this. And the person, oh, yes, I see those themes were there, but I thought the emphasis was this. And I love that about art. I love the fact that our own human experiences can connect into some of those multi-layered themes in storytelling for entertainment. You do not want that in business. You do not want people coming out of the end of a storytelling session or a story from a leader, which is meant to impart really, really important knowledge for the success of your organization. Have your team walk out, go, well, I thought they were really emphasizing this. Did you? Oh, I didn't get that at all. I thought they were emphasizing this. No. It wasn't that at all. It's this. So storytelling in terms of the way they wrap up in a business context is usually a little bit more didactic. Artists hate this, but it's usually a bit more pragmatic. It involves statements along the lines of, the reason I'm telling you this story, if it isn't crystal clear, the reason I'm telling you this story is that these documents do need to be in the system an entire week before the deadline is due, because otherwise, we'll end up like Sarah, the subject of my story. I might have told a lessons learned story about how Sarah didn't get the documents in time and went to shit and we lost the project, et cetera. Yeah? So let's not be like Sarah. Yeah? Let's get these documents in on time. Now, it's not sexy. It's not, oh my goodness, my best friend's got cancer, my mum's just died, and this and that and the other. It's not dramatic in a sense, but I understand why I'm telling the story. I'm walking you in someone else's shoes. And because you're walking in their shoes, you are now able to engage in that. Some of those benefits that you read about in storytelling research, the idea of neural coupling, where when you hear a story, the ideas become your own. I get greater sense of retention, that multiple areas of my brain are stimulated, that I have a sense of shared experience. That only occurs if you walk me in someone's shoes. So that amongst all the things that we could talk about, Simon, that's what I would say would be my top pieces of advice.
Right, I like it. Yeah,
that was brilliant. I mean, you often hear, I know the quotes, books and literature are machines of empathy, and it's that idea that that's it. Storytelling is about creating empathy for
Yes.
connecting people in a human way to something of importance. In this case, to the organisation. But that's a brilliant way to distinguish between stories and anecdotes, for example, because anecdotes can be happening just over there. This happened and then this, and this person over there did that. And hey, isn't that interesting? But the empathy of bringing it into walking in someone else's shoes, I think, is wonderful. That is a very succinct way of talking about the power of storytelling in organizations. Thank you.
I've never heard it expressed like that either. I've lots of different ways of. That's the first time I've heard that sort of empathy piece as well. You've starred in over 20 films and worked with some amazing people and teams, I imagine, as part of that process. So how is maybe the way films are made, people work together to bring something new to life, how has that maybe impacted what you do? And are there any key learnings maybe stay with you? And I know you worked with Working Dog Productions in Australia. And John, this is almost like I'll let you talk. Working Dog Productions, and they're sort of there's so much great content. They've just continuously churned it out all over the years. So yeah, fire away.
I think Working Dog are geniuses because they have told so many different types of stories that allow us to walk in someone's shoes. So we feel like we've been there and we get a greater sense of, understanding that person's context. And if I come back to The Castle, I take so many great lessons from the way that we made that. I mean, we made that entire film in 11 days. Which is a very, very fast shooting ratio to get a feature film done. We got a little bit more money. Our Working Dog got a little bit more money afterwards, and we had one pickup day. There's a day where I go and steal a gate with Dad, and I'd already shaved off my mullet by that stage, so I had to put a beanie on to hide the fact that I no longer had my mullet. But apart from that pickup day, just the rate of efficiency and trust and organisation and clarity, and also clarity not only from Rob, who was directing it, to us as an actor, but clarity in terms of their roles in a team within Working Dog. Everyone had their lane, everyone respected it. But I do want to just share something about The Castle that I really love, that I take into my work and I try and remember all the time, is that for those of your listeners outside of Australia, not many people would have heard of The Castle. And in terms of a plot and a narrative, it's a pretty standard plot, right? Like, it's a small guy fights the big guy and wins plot. So why did Australians take it to heart so much? I think it's to do with the empathy and love between the family. There's genuine affection in the filmmakers for that family. And the most important thing is that it celebrates our Australian voice. It celebrates the way that not every Australian, of course, we've got different regions, different geographies, different backgrounds, but there's a large population, there's a large percentage of the Australian population that talks like we talk in The Castle. And it was one of those few times where people went, oh, that's my family. We talk like that. That's how we sound. People felt seen on the Australian screen just by seeing that family. And this is something that pushes my buttons. Again, when we come back to my workplace now and we look at people dealing with communication in the workplace. I don't know if you've been in a room like this, but sometimes you can be in a room where people are talking about voice production and good communication. And in an Australian context, to demonstrate poor communication and poor vocal skills, do you know what they do? They just put on a broad Australian accent.
I'm shocked.
And that absolutely insults me. That absolutely insults me. The fact that someone's accent and someone's background, whether it's an Australian accent or a South London accent or a Chicago accent, that someone's accent could be used to demonstrate poor communication from one person to another, absolutely drives me nuts. And I have to say that a lot of that comes from people in creative industries bringing that sort of vocal work into this type of context, where there's a sense of performance, there's a sense of transformation, there's a sense of otherness, and that doesn't translate well into any workplace. I want to be able to hear my voice in the supervisor, in the general manager, in the CEO, a sense that my background is valid in terms of the way I speak and the way I communicate. So I always think about that because I work with lots of different accents, and I always make sure that I don't describe the strengths and weaknesses of each accent, because they'll have some strengths and weaknesses in terms of diction and clarity. And we've got lots of research around different accents actually favor different resonating chambers when people speak. I want to make sure I'm not making a value judgment around those types of things when I'm talking about good communication with my clients. It's possible to be a wonderful leader and communicator with a Boston accent, a New York accent, an accent from Maroochydore in Queensland, Manly on northern beaches, Barralaba in the outback of Queensland, or Southampton. We don't have to prescribe to some sense. So I take that from the castle, Simon. I know I've gone a bit of a detour, but I really take that from the castle.
No, it's great.
The fact that those voices validated the audience.
It brings another aspect into storytelling. Is it so, as well as allowing the listener, if you will, to walk in someone else's shoes, the other part is that they recognize themselves in the story or can connect to the story from their own perspective as well. And again, that's quite a challenge, isn't it? To be able to, as you say, build the empathy at the same time go, okay, I'm in this story as well. Yeah, this makes sense to me. This resonates because that could be me. If that's
exactly right. That's the academic gobbledygook that I'm trying to express when I say something like neural coupling. Yeah. The fact that I'm coupling in here now, the sense that those experiences, I'm actually in this. That's so much better explained than what I attempted to. Thank you.
No, we'll stick with neural.
Thanks, John.
Neural coupling is much more right for someone with a
doctor. Quite sexy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ooh, you can't. My neurals are coupling.
Look, the other thing I take is a story that I've told a couple of times, which I try and live and breathe every single day, is at the end of my film career, I'd just come off Farscape, and Farscape, I was one of the leads in that. We did it for 5 years. And the great thing about being a lead in a television show or a film, or maybe in any creative team, is that you're part of the collaborative discussions. So there's this thing that we bash young actors or actors over the head with. There's no small parts, only small actors. And to a point, that's true. But if you're a small actor who's not participating in any of the collaboration, it's a shitty day at work. So you can have a small role and be a part of the collaboration. I mean, one of the things, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever my performance is like in the castle, I don't have that much dialogue, but I'm really proud of the way I contributed that. I'm really actually proud of the non-verbal contribution I made to that film. My favorite scene in the castle is one where Michael Caton's delivering this whole thing over an overhead projector, and I just made all these choices about delayed reactions, open mouth, eye contact, which in that scene I think really, really paid off for me. But so it's not about the size of the role. It's about how much you can collaborate. I'd come off Farscape and then I found myself on Nims Island. And Nims Island was a Hollywood production shot in Queensland. We did studio work at the studios on the Gold Coast, and then a lot of location up in beautiful North Queensland. And I did a lot of days on this film. When I say a lot of days for a small role, I think I had like less than 20 lines in this whole film. I'm basically an extra. But I spent weeks and weeks and weeks in the background on this film. And it absolutely drove me nuts. Not because I'm an egotist, not because I feel like I need to be the center of attention, but because I just wasn't part of the collaboration. I was sitting around. It was a really despondent experience for me. And it was actually the job that made me think I'm out. If I can't be a part of a meaningful collaboration conversation, I don't want to be here. But then as I was on my very, very last day, it was the last day of the shoot. I was desperate to get out of there. I was glum. I was defeated, deflated, despondent. Any other word that starts with D. I was that.
Yeah.
And just could not wait to get out of there. And on this film was Jodie Foster, and I'm a massive fan of hers. I had a couple of scenes with her, but then again, not really collaborating in the background, but got to see her up close, got to see her work, but didn't have really anything to do with her. And on the last day of the shoot, you can imagine just how many people are there. There's lots of different extras. There's the minor characters like myself. There's the major characters, the stars of the film. There's all the crew. There's, I don't want to exaggerate, but I'd say upward of like 60 or more people on that last day set. We're on location. And something that Jodie Foster did has absolutely stuck with me ever since that day as a sign of class, but also maybe a bit more of a specific word, a sign of true leadership, of creating followers. One definition of leadership is creating followership. So how does she create followers on this hard set? So on the last day of the shoot, she went round to every single person on that set, me included, looked you in the eye, shook your hand, thanked you for the work that you'd done on the film, asked you what you were moving on to next, and then moved on to the next person. And I just saw her do that person to person, genuinely, sincerely, dare I say, authentically, move that around. And that's also the other lesson, because I go back to your question, Simon, what did you learn from film? So from The Castle, seeing yourself on screen, seeing your voice, being true to how you express yourself. From Nim's Island, it's that you can lift even the most despondent person in your team with a little bit of genuine gratitude and acknowledgement for what they've contributed, regardless of whether they're one of your first team players or whether you're subs or one of your support staff. A little bit of gratitude goes a long way. So they're two stories from my film career that I hope I can live up to and I take with me every single day into work.
And I've got some other words for how you could have described D words: dehydrated,
yes,
destroyed, delirious, delicious, devo, which is maybe sort
completely
of a word, devilish, or using Spanish, de nada.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah. So if you need a few more for the storybook next time.
I'm certainly picking up dehydrated, because if you see that, I'm in these like jumpers and things like that in this like pretty crazy sailor outfit, and there we are in North Queensland. So dehydrated is absolutely going to be added to that next time I tell that story, because it was bloody hot.
So, Anthony, it's time for Thought Experiment, which I'm sure you know was a way that philosophers could explore deep, profound ideas and wrestle with concepts in a really meaningful way. However, thought experiments on this show mean something completely different. We recognise you as an organisational storyteller, and stories being very much at the heart of what you've been involved in for many years. So we've got some stories, or should I say plots, of movies, and we're going to give these to you in 6 words or less, and you've got to guess what the film is. Okay, so
oh my goodness. Okay,
and I'm going. So for the first couple,
I reckon 0 from 6 here, but let's get.
Well,
as long as they're all Star Wars films, we're pretty solid.
All right, okay, we might have to change. Change tack here. Right, here's the first. That's a huge bottle of water. Show me that again.
Isn't it? Yeah, I've been thinking that.
Is that just very close to the camera? Or is it?
No, it's
huge,
2.5 liters or something. Because I'm an idiot. It's got like you're meant to be here by 8 o'clock. You're meant to be there by 2 o'clock. You're meant to be there by 4 o'clock.
Sorry, people who can't see this at home, obviously, it looks like you're drinking from a water cooler tub.
Yeah,
one of those things that you stick on
a beer. What do you call the beer things when they roll them downstairs?
A keg of water.
A keg.
Well, we say it's water. We don't know for sure, do we? Right. Here's the first one for you, Anthony. So I'll start saying each word in turn, and as soon as you think you've got it, you can jump in with the answer. So here's your first film plot in 6 words or less. So, married. Second word, married. Third word, married. Fourth word, married.
4 weddings and a funeral.
Yay!
Oh, very good. Very good.
I was about to say dead.
Okay, very good. All right. Our next one. The first word is oh. The second word is horse. The third word is head.
Toy Story.
Family. No.
Potato head. No.
So I'll start to go oh. Horse, head, family.
Oh, Godfather.
Yeah, absolutely.
My favourite film. My absolute favourite film of all time.
I hope you liked my.
I know.
That's good.
All right, John. Go.
Yeah, I thought you had to go to the bathroom or something there, and you weren't ready to start the actual question. Here we go. So I'll just give you the next one here, Anthony. You don't talk about it.
Silence of the Lambs?
No. First rule. You don't talk about it.
Ah, Fight Club.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Very good. It's good.
First rule gives it away.
All right. Next one. Group spends 9 hours returning some jewelry.
The heist film with Brad Pitt and what are they called? And then Kate Blanchett did a follow-up one, and it was actually
cold. Remember when you're cold and warm when you're younger? Cold, warm, hot. You're cold.
Oh, not there. Okay.
Okay, we'll say it again. Group spends 9 hours returning some jewelry.
Think of a trilogy. 3 hours each. My gosh.
Not Lord of the Rings.
Hey!
You got it. You got it. Hot. All right. And John, do you want to do maybe the last one, which is the one I'm just about to highlight? That one there.
Okay. The last one on the list?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, number 5.
Number 5? Oh, yeah. So,
Yeah.
vertebrates on a passenger jet.
Oh, snakes on a plane. A truly awesome work of art. Lots of
and we do have one. We do have one left. All right. Aussie. Rissoles.
Oh.
Home.
The castle.
Yeah, the castle. And if you haven't seen that film, one of the best lines, ooh, what's that? Rissoles? Ooh, put on it. Seasoning. All right. And that was the thought experiment film plot in 6 words.
Awesome.
Okay, we're coming towards the end of the show, Anthony, and it's the not so serious business part of the show. And just some advice, really, from yourself with all the insights and experiences that you've shared in the last hour or so. And we just wanted to contextualize it by saying, look, the World Economic Forum is recognizing that something like 44% of key worker skills are expected to have to change in the next 5 years. And we know that often is framed in terms of we want people who are going to be more curious, more creative, that they're problem solvers, that they can work really well in teams and collaborate. So with that in the background and your sort of background as a teacher, facilitator and coach, how can we do this? How can we have individuals access their creative selves better? How can teams become more curious together? And how can leaders become better storytellers? If that's one of the key asks that we're starting to have to respond to.
Well, I think that an initial way to explore that as an individual is to explore this idea of being a polymath, to chase down different ideas. When I was lecturing at NIDA, the most boring students that came in were the only ones that were fascinated. And all they did was drama. So they actually had nothing to say. And then I met this amazing guy in my year called Hugh Baldwin, who's gone on to be an incredible television producer and director and production company owner, all these type of things. And one of my very first conversations with him was about mathematics. And I think his interest in mathematics actually led him to be a great actor and now to be a great producer and things like that. So be interested in chasing down different disciplines and different things. I think I'm really on a common theme here with lots of people in corporate life at the moment, that in terms of the team, I'm well embedded in the research by Amy Edmondson, and that psychological safety is at the heart of curiosity at a team level. So you are not going to get any team curiosity unless people feel safe to explore ideas, to allow them to be wrong, to be extended upon, to be changed. If I don't feel safe in that environment, then we're nowhere. And in terms of leaders and communication, I just want to say, despite what you might hear from different conferences and keynotes and books that you read, you can't out body language terrible content. Repeat that. You can't out body language terrible content. So at the heart of all communication is your synthesis, is your knowledge, is your insight. And you start from that point, and then you start to talk about the bridge between your knowledge and your audience. But, if you just think that through amazing presence and body language and voice control and great eye contact and setting up this, that you can be a great communicator, then people are going to see through that very, very, very quickly.
Now, John and I often talk around putting T-shirts together and, it's only stated as a talking point. However, You can't out body language terrible content. That would go on one of our T-shirts. John would have a big hashtag next to it. Yeah.
Can I
Because I'm a
just
little
say
bit
as
more
well,
crass
though?
than you guys, I usually call it shit content, but I was just trying to be...
Yeah, no, shit content's fine. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
But what the other thing you said there, Anthony, which again is really nice, isn't it, is that as a leader you have some inherent knowledge, insight, experience that you wish to convey to, and you build a bridge to the audience. You build a bridge to the audience. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of communication skills just leaves the person starting on the bridge. A lot of communication skills training. So I'm on the bridge. Let me talk about, no, you've got to go to their bank first, their side of the river, understand them, understand what they're trying to communicate, understand the patterns and the ideas that need to communicate. Then you cross the bridge. Then you start to deal with how you're going to traverse to that specific audience, which is on the other bank. But that's why I think some communications, I'm being very derogatory here, but when you see bad communication skills training, they don't invest enough time trying to understand what that person's trying to explain. When I'm coaching a bid, I don't spend hardly any time talking about body language, voice, gesture, or that. I'm talking engineering about how are we building this? What's the sequence of it? Who's the audience? What's the context? What's the construction methodology? We're talking about all that stuff because that's the narrative that they have to put into play with their audience.
One question I must ask, Anthony, before we wrap up is, as someone who teaches communication skills and presentation skills, is it still a good idea to imagine that your audience is naked to calm the nerves?
In a professional sense, absolutely not. Anything that takes you away from real and genuine contact, like imagining people naked or looking at the back of the room or looking at their forehead, takes away from your sense that you're listening and being listened to. And that actually is going to reflect, there's a lot of interesting research around the fact that it's not magic, that we see very interesting micro gestures in the muscles of the face. We see different levels of intonation in the voice when people feel there's a real and genuine sense of contact. And part of that contact is in part made by real and genuine eye contact. I do want to say, though, that forcing eye contact onto a group is not a suck it up princess, you've got to do it because that's what great communication is, because that really can be incredibly culturally unsensitive in terms of in some different contexts. And then it becomes about how you use nonverbals and eye contacts to denote power on another person. So I'm definitely not a lock into eye contact all the time person. It's a part of your toolkit that you need to put in there, and it's important how you use it. But definitely don't imagine people naked or look at the back of the room.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because I've got a wedding coming up next week and I've got to do a breast man speech presentation and Art Beryl's going to be in the front row.
Yeah. Embarrassing for everyone.
Anthony, we're going to conclude with a rapid fire round. So, what's one thing you couldn't do without in your life right at the moment?
My beautiful family and my incredible team. They are my absolute rock.
We are building the Occupational Philosophers Manifesto. What one thing of all your learning do you think should be included?
Be like Bowie. Be like Bowie. And if you want more than a one-word answer, he said, if you feel safe in the area that you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water than you feel you're being capable, that you feel you're capable of being in. So one of my manifestos, and I think you should contemplate, be like Bowie. Even if you don't like his music, be like Bowie.
I've written it down, and it is going to go up on my my screen tomorrow. John,
can I just add that my first album, Anthony, was Scary Monsters, Super Creeps. So I'm just saying.
Good man.
Hey?
Awesome
quality. What book should we be reading right now?
Oh, okay. So if you're into AI and what's coming for us, where's my camera? This one.
Yeah.
The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman absolutely gives you a great sense of the rate of change that's coming our way. Wonderful comparisons to things like electricity and the printing press and stuff like that. And I think it'll just give people a real great sense of what's ahead of us. And the other thing I haven't finished reading yet, but I'm really loving early on, is I'm reading a biography on Leonardo da Vinci by Walter Isaacson. And his main premise of that is that we shouldn't be thinking about da Vinci as a genius, because that takes away from all the effort and the exploration that he did to become a genius. And I'm just loving that thesis within that book.
And I think that's had a mention before that book as well. Now,
wonderful.
Anthony, let's say it's very, very, very much in the later years of your life, and you've been taken into your retirement home. You're taken in as a knock on the lounge room door. You walk in, and the nurse says, "Hello, everyone. Here's Anthony. How would you like to be introduced?"
Anthony's the 90-year-old guitar-playing gym junkie who follows his wife around like they've just met and he can't keep his eyes off her.
Oh, brownie points, hey? Hope you're listening, Mr. Simcoe.
But I want to be a 90-year-old guitar-playing gym junkie. That's it.
What are you up to next, Anthony? What's the big things on the horizon for you?
I'm flying up to Brisbane to run some collaboration workshops. I've got some enormous infrastructure bids going on in Victoria at the moment, and some finishing up in Queensland. So just trying to get my head around some of the construction and engineering methodology on those jobs so I can go in and help those people transfer that knowledge to someone else.
And look, where can we find you, connect with you, buy you virtual drinks? Where do you hang out in the world of socials, websites, different things?
I'm the most terrible social media person, but I do have an unloved LinkedIn page. So look for Anthony Simcoe on there. I'm the only one there. And you'll be able to see what we're up to as I whinge about being 6'5", traveling around on too many flights up and down the east coast of Australia.
Well, you're lucky you're not on Ryanair. That's all I'll say. And look, website and things, do we...
AnthonySimcoeConsulting.com. You'll find us there. Yeah, AnthonySimcoeConsulting.com. That's where you'll find us. You'll find us on LinkedIn. And, if you're looking for some help around that, then we're certainly one of the many, many facilitators. And to go back to the theme earlier on, maybe we're not the best, but we give it a good shake.
That's it. We shake the can. Yeah.
That's the sentiment behind this podcast. We just give it a good shake.
We give it a good shake. We have a crack. We have a crack. Have a crack and send you an invoice.
Yeah.
It's been a real pleasure. It really has. And suffice to say, if you ever find yourself over this side of the world in the UK, do let me know. I'd love to catch up and buy you a drink. A real one, not a virtual one.
I'll drag you along to Selhurst Park.
Yeah. Yeah. That's time.
Yeah, you guys have got beef. Yeah.
We got right at the Crystal Palace game. We should make it happen. Sit at opposite ends of the ground, wave at each other. Yeah.
Sing at each other.
And look, while your beef rolls on, I'll just jump in as well, Anthony. Yeah, look, so good to have you on the show. Been trying to tee this up for a long time. We finally found a spot in your diary, so thanks for joining us. And look, take us into the world of so many things I thought we might talk about and so many things I didn't think we'd talk about, but I only say that in a positive way. And I always say, if you're in the wrong room, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So it's been great to be in this room and hear so much about the work that you do. So thanks again.
We should add, actually, Anthony, myself and Simon are very often in the right room, or the wrong room. Sorry. We are very, very often. I surround
myself with smart people. That's
We're
my
not
life.
the smartest
people.
The fact you just muffed up that saying and so did I just proves our point. Yeah.
Thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate you inviting me on, and it's been a wonderful conversation. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you. I love your podcast. And I want to do a shout out. My favorite one, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but my favorite one that I've listened to so far, I love this guy. I want to go and chase him up, is Jason Fox.
Yeah. He's a cool cat. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Epistemological uncertainty. That's what we're talking about now. We're talking on one of his themes, that people have that epistemological uncertainty if they're really genuinely curious. Love that. He's my new guy to chase down and find out about. So love your podcast,
right.
love the work you done, love the work you do. So thank you very much, guys.
Well, we can make that happen.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome.
What a great guest, John.
Yes, indeed.
Really enjoyed spending that time with Dr. Simcoe. And as we always do, like to just have a little spot at the end where we sort of review and get our thoughts together about what we discussed. So what were your highlights?
Yes, well, I was really taken by his very, very succinct description and explanation around storytelling in organizations, and just that idea of what's it trying to do? Well, it's not telling an anecdote, which can be sort of about someone doing something, but actually telling a story which helps your audience walk in someone else's shoes, which is, that classic definition of empathy. So telling a story is about building empathy with the individual in the story, building a bridge to the audience, and making sure that they see themselves in that story, as well as recognize what it's like for someone else in the story. So I thought that was really good, that it's just about telling a story, building empathy, building a bridge. What happens as someone tries to affect a difficult goal, and what does it change in them, or how do things change around them? So that was it. I thought, absolutely every time. There's many clients that I would be working with, I'm sure you're the same, where that ability to distill that kind of sort of insight they might have into a story like that would be exceptionally transformational, if that's not too bold a statement.
No, we like bold statements.
Bold statements. What else did I get? I got the experience of the TV and film productions that Anthony's been involved with. So, he talked about The Castle, that meaningful collaboration that he would see, which was all about efficiency, because everybody was clear about their roles in the team. There was trust in what each other was doing. No role was too unimportant. Every role mattered, didn't matter whether it was a small role or, in the acting world, it was non-speaking to speaking. Every role was important. And a recognition of that, I think, was really useful. So that experience there. And then the final one I liked was, you can't use body language to get past shit content.
Classic.
So, forget your waving your arms or putting your hand forward with the thumb clasped into your fist, so you're not pointing like politicians do. If what you're talking is rubbish, it doesn't matter what you do to try and sort of fluff it up with a bit of hand gestures, arm gestures, and whatever else it is. So yeah, that was quite good. And the makings of a t-shirt.
It's good. Just remind me then, someone I was doing some work with, and he said, there's so much storytelling in the office now. He goes, look, I just want the expense report. I don't need TED Talk. He said, just get up, give it to me, 5 minutes, done. He said, we're out of here. Don't need
Well, do you think it could do you think it could go over the top if someone's just presenting back the sickness or absence rates over the last well, there was a lady called Sarah. Sarah was having a tough time at home. Just tell us the figures.
I like it. Now,
what about you,
Simon?
Simon?
What caught my eye. Yeah, that saying right at the beginning, what can you accomplish at the limit of your talent, and building on it, how can you apply yourself? And there's multiple ways to look at that as well, because, the person who works the hardest with what they've got might beat the person who, has got the skills but doesn't put in the work. And you see that in sport all the time, which is probably the story he's told around Crystal Palace as well. And also that mindset of around, I'm not creative because I compare myself against someone's draftsman-like skills or something. So it's just that whole, well, what can you do, and what are your creativities and things you're passionate about? How do you drive that forward as well? So, yeah, you could probably do a whole podcast on that, really. And I also liked the one, just say thanks. Like with Jodie Foster, just went around and said thanks. He felt great, even though he felt dehydrated and destroyed and delirious. That made him, just how simple is that? Just say thanks. Hey, appreciate your work. Boom. And also be like Bowie, and I probably won't get it as well as he did, but if you're in your comfort zone, you're not feeling a little bit uncomfortable, you're not doing the right thing. So look, musically, look where it took Bowie, and life and all those sort of things. So yeah, what a great thing, be like Bowie. Another hashtag. But then I also heard someone say the other day, how do you recognize a boomer? They use hashtags. So maybe we
Oh, no. We're
we need to be
drifting into
careful.
boomer territory. Oh, LOL.
Yeah. Which David Cameron thought meant lots of love when what was the name? Rebecca, what's the name you said to him? The Daily Editor, Mirror Editor or something. She's going to laugh out loud. He thought she was saying lots of love. Anyway, we digress, John. We've come to the end of the show. And look, as always, thank you for listening. Tell your friends. If you do have the time and enjoyed it, please leave a review. It's always a nice thing to have happen. And you can always get in contact on our website, occupationalphilosophers.com. There's a bunch of ways there to say hello as well. But as always, before we head off into the day, the evening, the week, wherever it may be, what do we want people to do, John?
We want them to stay curious, play more, have fun, make stuff, and most importantly,
get out and date life and be like Bowie.